And welcome back to the IEM Katowice 2019 closed qualifiers, but this time we're moving forward with East Asia. Hello and welcome back. My name is Asterix. I'm joined by Jordan Elfish Guy Mays here, and we're back for another day, Jordan, this time looking at, I guess, the same region, but a different aspect.
Yeah, I think what we should clarify, though, it's not the qualifiers for Katowice, it's the qualifiers for the minor, which is the qualifiers for Katowice. But that's okay. We'll get there in the end. Now, obviously, yeah, like you say, we're talking about the same region in that we're talking about the Asian region, but at this time, not Southeast Asia, it's East Asia. And typically, we don't really talk about East Asia when we're talking about Counter-Strike within the region. There's SEA and there's China, and they're usually the two different regions. But this has kind of been split up even more for the minor qualifiers. So when we're talking about East Asia, we're talking about teams from like Korea, teams from Japan. Those are the teams that we're going to get to be seeing here. Probably even the Mongolian teams as well are going to be jumping into that sort of region as well. So it's a little bit more split from what we would normally just consider the greater Asian region.
But mainly looking at the Korean teams. And one of the Korean teams that obviously leading the way is MVP throughout many times before. We look at them and we say, are they the strongest team from East Asia? Some people say yes, but a lot of the time their consistency and versatility, especially around some maps, can surprise.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to consider just East Asia, just the teams that are in this qualifier, 100% MVP is the best team within this region. But when it comes to the Asian region as a whole, MVP, I would still even put up quite high. We're talking against even teams like Vici, Tyloo, Boot Dreamscape. MVP has had their moments where they've really looked very, very good. I, for a long while, did actually consider them the second best team within the region behind Tyloo. There was maybe even a month or two where I thought they might actually be a little bit better at the current time than Tyloo was. That was when Tyloo was in a bit of a slump, though. So beggars can't be choosers, I guess, when it comes to MVP. No. If you're sitting in second place within the Asia region, though, just behind Tyloo, I think you'd be generally pretty happy with that because it means you're going to be winning most of the qualifiers, being that Tyloo doesn't tend to play in too many of them. In this qualifier in particular, I would have to say MVP would be my shoe-in. As soon as you see this team, you think they should be the one going through to the minor from the upper bracket here, and of course they made their way through the upper bracket as well.
Of course, yesterday we were talking about how important it was to make that upper bracket run, but looking at East Asia, we didn't kind of get to see the first 8 teams in the best of 3s, but we are towards the later end here today, and looking at that bracket again, it's our best of 3, it's our finals, it's our qualification matches that we're looking at today, especially in MVP and GOSU lead the charge. So this first one here, a very important match to secure minor position coming into 2019.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, MVP and GOSU both coming through the upper bracket. They're in the upper bracket final, and like you said, that's going to be the first match that we'll be able to watch. The interesting thing about this match is that both of these two teams are from Korea. MVP, like everyone knows MVP. They're a team that's been around for ages. GOSU may be a team that we don't necessarily know so much, or maybe people that don't watch too much Asian Counter-Strike wouldn't be as familiar with. If you do remember HSK, he was a former MVP player, has gone on to GOSU, and GOSU lost Zeta, who then went to MVP, so it was a bit of a trade of their AWPers. That's worked out pretty well for MVP of late. But looking at these two teams, obviously there's quite a bit of history coming from the same region, trading players in and out as they do. There's a lot of matches that we can take a look at and see how they've been going of late. Generally speaking, it has always favoured MVP. They are the best in the region, and obviously there's a reason for that because they can beat teams like GOSU quite handily. Last time they played against each other, it was a best of 3 that did go all the way to the 3rd map, and GOSU was able to pick up a win on Inferno, which was very surprising to me and probably to most people because Inferno has traditionally been the best map for MVP.
After yesterday, I'm not sure we really know what to expect
after,
anyway.
After even the last couple of months, having watched MVP, I think when you consider their map pool, I would say a lot of people would still sort of think, oh yeah, Inferno's really good for MVP, but I'm maybe not quite agreeing with that anymore. I think their Inferno has fallen off quite a little bit. I'd much rather see them picking up something like Nuke, but obviously that's a discussion for later on down the track. It's just in general, this matchup, though, should very much go to MVP, and 9 times out of 10, it should be a 2-0. I don't know if that'll be the case today. I think it could go to a 2-1, but I think for a team the caliber of MVP, you really have to be looking for a 2-0.
I was going to lean on that map pool, especially what we looked at yesterday, because it is essentially, it feels like a different region when we're looking at Korea versus, maybe the Philippines and Malaysia, Indonesia, especially in CS. But for a team like GOSU, they coming into this might not be as heavily favoured as MVP, of course. That's why we're talking about it. But to get here, they beat Absolute. Now it was a 2-1, and Overpass didn't look too good for them, but they kind of solidified their lead and pushed their way forward. So there is still heavy expectations that they will put up a bit of a good fight. And again, that head-to-head matchup will kind of give us an indication of, okay, was it just Inferno looking rough for MVP, or were they looking rough in general?
Yeah, I mean, SC Absolute, or no longer SC Absolute, as they've just left their organisation. The former SC Absolute roster, definitely a reasonable team within this competition. competition, one that we might expect to have a potential to actually make it to the minor, but they're never going to be that top. They're never going to be considered like MVP would be as to be a sure run through this competition. So for GOSU to get a win there against SC Absolute, that's pretty good. That's nice. It's a reasonable win on the board.
This is a different stepping stone.
You can draw some conclusions from it, but how many, especially when you're going to go up against MVP, which is a powerhouse. You know, you put like GOSU probably, I would actually say even a little bit below Absolute. Maybe I'll consider that one an upset that GOSU was able to get the victory there. But it's a whole different story when GOSU is going to be going up against MVP here. I would suspect that it's probably going to be Absolute going through from their match over on the other side of things when we do look at that lower bracket match. And then potentially we'll see how that one does go later on down the track. But for MVP, you know, there should be no question about them going up against GOSU here. GOSU can put in their best effort, but I think MVP can kind of cruise through this one on 75%.
Well, we'll start looking at priorities, maybe like Inferno, pushing them back into that corner and saying, look, this happened before, why can't it happen again?
It's a question, yeah.
In terms of map pool, especially maybe Cash Mirage when MVP beat Young Power quite convincingly there, so expect that to be hovered as a priority. So far in the map pool, and comparing only to Middle Asia and the Middle East, what do we call it? Southeast Asia, excuse me.
Asia, yeah.
No, learning my continents. But this is going to kind of test us and see, right, is it you know, is Nuke just looking good for these top tier teams, or you know, where do we stand?
Well, I think Nuke definitely does look like a good map for the top tier teams because they can have a little bit more time to practice all these maps than maybe some of the other teams which aren't not necessarily 100% professional teams. You know, they've got other jobs and that kind of thing. But for teams like MVP, certainly who full-time Counter-Strike, they should have a good grasp of that map. And if they can manage to find a way to get that map through the veto stage, then definitely, in my opinion, you should be picking that. A lot of the time we've seen actually Nuke not get vetoed against them, and nor has Inferno been vetoed against them, and they've picked Inferno. And in my mind, I think they should be actually picking Nuke. Not necessarily to say that Nuke is a better map for MVP specifically than what Inferno is, but more so the fact that Nuke is, generally speaking, a worse map for the opposition teams than what Inferno is. These days, Inferno has become quite a standard map within the map pool. Most teams can play Inferno. It's like Inferno and Mirage, and to a bit of a lesser extent, Cache, are maps that we see all the time. Almost every single best of 3 series is going to have either Inferno or Mirage in it. So for you to be picking that as a map, I mean, yeah, sure, you're very good at it as MVP, but we've seen time and time again, we've gone into Inferno and said, yeah, look, MVP should absolutely smash this. It's their best map. They've got such a great history on it. And then it's either a very, very close map, or they actually let it slip, as they did last time against GOSU. So, in my opinion, picking Nuke instead of that, and instead of allowing Nuke through to the third map, you grab Nuke as your first map choice here as MVP. If it's available, you can hope for maybe even a Train in there as well. Nuke or Train, I think, would be great choices right now for MVP. They're very, very good on both of those maps. Sure, I wouldn't be disappointed to see Inferno out from them. I think it's still a good map for them. But at the moment, I think Nuke and maybe even Train would be a better option as
really
their first
bad
pick.
track record for GOSU, especially on Nuke. So as a first pick for MVP, that'd kind of seal the deal.
There's
but
probably a good chance that GOSU will veto Nuke, which is fair enough. But I think if Nuke is available, then definitely pick it.
Take it. On the other side, GOSU on Train, though, it's not a sealed deal. Train has a pretty good expectation if GOSU are able to pick that up. So maybe the priority's there, maybe the confidence working into this matchup, playing their own style of CS, is definitely what they have to do. But it's Korea versus Korea once again, Jordan. We're looking at the regional clash. And I feel like this one is in comparison to yesterday when it was Singapore versus Singapore. This one feels a little bit more like it's a bit more cut and dry.
This one's a bit more established than the Singapore matchup, but I personally haven't seen too much from Vindicta, so I think that was a little bit more of a question in my mind. But I have seen GOSU a few times, and of late, actually, GOSU has been on a bit of an up and up. You know, they kind of came in, I would say 6 months ago to sort of my radar, and I obviously watch quite a lot of Asian Counter-Strike, so I think now we're starting to get a bit of a better grasp as to where GOSU might sit themselves. Obviously, still quite far below MVP in the grand scheme of things, but I do think there's a real possibility that they can upset. They're going to need to get on some good maps. You know, you'll be looking at something like Inferno, maybe even Train there for GOSU is a chance. We'll see how the map pool does play out when we do actually get into the matchup here. But I think if we do end up seeing something like Nuke in there, that's going to be a real problem. At the very least, you know, obviously I'm talking quite a lot about Nuke here, but I think if Nuke can come through for MVP, that is going to be definitely a sure map. And if you give MVP a sure map, then you have to bet your bottom dollar that one of those other two maps is probably going to go their way as well.
You don't want to open with that.
MVP is very, very strong in terms of the map pool, just in general. So they're going to have a lot of options. And I think there's no real possibility here that GOSU actually wins the veto, in a sense. Like, you don't see MVP having 2 maps that are worse on paper than what GOSU have. But I do think that there's a chance that GOSU can kind of sneak a couple of maps in there where they can at least contest. And, you know, if they get a good round where they might reset the economy of MVP at the right time or the wrong time or whatever, then there's maybe a chance they get through some close maps.
I was going to say, we're looking for that priority on Nuke. Let's look at those map vetoes now for you. Thank you so much for waiting with us. But we're looking towards Nuke. The ban is straight off the bat. Now, the blank square there, of course, is going to be GOSU, but Overpass being the ban, which, again, is fair enough when Overpass was probably the weakness of MVP.
That'll be their standard ban. So what we'd be looking here probably is Train Inferno, I think, is maybe the first 2. There's a chance Mirage comes out from MVP. They do like that map. Train's going to be the choice there from GOSU, expected. Dust 2, actually, for MVP, has been one that they've been picking up of late. Definitely hasn't been a map that they had great success on initially when it came out into the map pool. We didn't see it a lot from MVP, but they're trying to get it into their map pool. I do think that's a pretty reasonable choice. We've seen GOSU a little bit on Dust 2 as well. They've had some good performances, especially against Vici. I think I watched them play one online match, which did get fairly close into overtime against Vici, but Vici inevitably won that. So I don't think that's a bad choice for MVP. Excited to see how they go. Mirage taken away by GOSU, a good choice. We're going to be left on Inferno. Both teams will be happy with that. Again, you look at this map pool and you think, okay, does GOSU win this map veto? And the answer is not really. They do get Train, but we know MVP is pretty good on Train. Dust 2, of course, is very good for MVP. Bit more of a question up in the air than for GOSU. And Inferno, in theory, if you look at past history, you look at the last matchup, you say GOSU did win that, but I would still have to favor MVP because they have so much experience on this map at the top level. Maybe they've lost a little bit of that pizzazz. Maybe they've lost a little bit of the excitement that we normally had from them on Inferno, but it really should be their map. So worst case scenario here, I think, is a 2-1 with GOSU maybe winning Train. All in all, though, I actually think this should be a 2-0.
It feels like you're wronging some rights by putting Inferno at the end for MVP as well. So this is kind of a chance to see. If we do get there, I think it will be kind of surprised anyway, especially with Dust 2 pickup. You said the unique, the niche style of MVP moving more towards this map. But now for the first one, we go on to Train. GOSU feeling confident going in. Remember, it is one of their better maps, but for MVP, you could say the exact same. So I think at this point we're going, all right, cool. This could go either way. But if it does go MVP's way, then there is a high chance that we only get to 2.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, if Train goes the way of MVP, definitely, we'd be expecting them to pick up Dust 2. But for this first match, I mean, obviously what we're looking at is Sioki with the AWP there for GOSU. I've seen days where he's actually looked really shocking, like absolutely hasn't existed in the server. And HSK has been the one taking, not necessarily the AWP duties, but the carry duties, I suppose, for GOSU. Now, if you remember, HSK was the primary AWPer for MVP. So if Sioki's having a bad day, HSK can always pick it up. But the tendency that we saw from GOSU was that Sioki would continually be given the AWP, and HSK was still running around with a rifle. Sioki was doing nothing with the AWP, and that was just, you know, like $5,000 basically thrown down in the bin, essentially. So want to see Sioki have a good day. Obviously, quite critical of him there, but I have also seen performances where he's played really, really well, and in particular, the last match against MVP that GOSU did play, Sioki was doing pretty well. So I'll keep an eye on Sioki, especially on Train, which again is a very AWP-centric map. In fact, the first 2 matches here, Dust 2, Train, both very, very AWP-centric maps.
Potential for a double AWP setup as well.
Yeah, potentially. I think we probably could see that from GOSU. Definitely could see that out from MVP, which is, again, what I was going to touch on there as well. Because it's such an AWP-centric map, we're looking to Zeta, the new addition to MVP. At this point, maybe a bit of a cop-out to call him the new addition, though, because he's been there for like 6 months. But he is the newest player in that roster. And he's going to have a big impact, or hopefully have a big impact, because I kind of see him as one of the star players alongside Zion. Again, you've got to keep an eye on Zion, especially if we get to Inferno. He's always such an important player on that map in particular, but just in general, Zion and Mini Zeta here for MVP need to have good performances. If we see the double AWP out, it's going to be Solo taking the secondary AWP for MVP. There's a lot of options there for both of these 2 teams to get into that double AWP scenario on these first couple of maps.
I mean, there's a lot of opportunity for Zion. He's the star. You quoted him as the star just before we came on to broadcast as well. So there's a lot of MVP players to watch, and I think watching the GOSU players is kind of going to give us an understanding if they can hold themselves toe-to-toe. In quoting in the Boot matchup yesterday, it was Boot who could hold these 1v1 aim battles against Vindicta towards a later stage. So I think individuality is very important coming into this, and a player like HSK, who was previously with the MVP roster, has kind of an opportunity. It's not a grudge match, but kind of to show like, all right, I don't need the team to succeed. I need myself to succeed alongside our new team GOSU.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always that revenge storyline in a sense for HSK. He was removed from the roster in favor of Zeta. Now, For HSK, I do think he's actually the strongest performer here for GOSU, individually speaking. He has got the most experience, being that he did play for MVP and played a lot of international tournaments. Not quite the case so much with GOSU or the rest of their players, because they're, they're second best, they're playing second fiddle, so they don't managed to qualify for most of these events. So for HSK, he's going to need to lead from the front, and we do typically see that, whether it be with the rifle or whether it be with the AWP in his hand. He always seems to be able to put on at least a consistent performance when it comes to this GOSU roster, which was kind of contrary to what we saw in MVP. His role in MVP was obviously the AWPer, but he was a little bit more inconsistent when it came to MVP, so I think that might have been part of why he was...
I think your playstyle on that note changes as well when you go from maybe like more of a leading roster where you go, all right, so if I fall back, then the roster itself will carry me up. If you go to something like GOSU where, no, they're not the best team in Korea on paper, then you go, all right, no, now I need to be the star.
I think so. There's a bit more maybe onus on HSK to perform in this GOSU roster than there was for MVP, for him when he was on MVP. But then you look over on the MVP roster as well, and like individually speaking, you look at those players and you think man for man, their firepower is a lot higher than what GOSU is. So it touches on that same thing what you said about Boot Dreamscape, where they are able to take those 1v1 battles, or in theory are able to take those 1v1 battles, and 9 times out of 10 they should be able to win them as well. We're looking at Zeta versus Sioke for the AWP battle. I'd be favouring Zeta with the form that he's been putting in the last couple of months. Zion absolutely could just tear this game apart. He's an individual that really steps up in clutch situations and able to get multi-frags. Obviously, he's a rifler, so he's able to be a bit more flexible than you might be with an AWP. And then you've kind of got the old experienced hand of the remaining 3 MVP players that have been playing even back since 1.6. So there's a lot of experience on that roster, a lot of new firepower, and it has kind of changed the dynamic of the team a little bit when it comes to MVP, because a lot of the time what we were talking about when we were talking about MVP, a year or two ago, was that they were a very strategic heavy team. They didn't necessarily have that firepower. Now they've added these 2 newer players, Zion and Mini Zeta. Obviously not necessarily recently adding them, but they have come into the roster, and I think they've changed the dynamic a little bit, where we're looking at a little bit more firepower here for MVP. If the going gets tough, you can sort of default back to Zion or Mini Zeta, just go do something crazy, and that 9 times out of 10 is going to be able to put you over the line.
Which will be different from the train we saw yesterday, so hopefully we're seeing that consistency on the board and that firepower that you're talking about really shown here on train to get them off to the biggest start on the map. Because if GOSU find this first map, then things get a little bit difficult, especially when you remember how Inferno went. But we are moving on to train, and this will be a test for MVP. What kind of form are they in today moving forward? Well, they've been pretty consistent. They've been pretty strong walking through 2-0 Young Power, 2-1 Storm Rider. And Inferno was the loss against Storm Rider to come into this. Still won the best of 3 series.
See, that's where I keep touching on. I think the Inferno actually hasn't been that great for MVP. Typically, if you saw Inferno in the map pool, that would be like, yep, 100% of victory here in my mind for MVP on that map. But not really the case here, or in recent times. Now, obviously, people probably questioning who is Storm Rider, not a name that you'd be too used to. That's sort of like the former Mongols members, Marasogu and CL joining in there. So not too surprising to see a map taken away from MVP by those guys, but the fact that it is Inferno does sort of raise a little bit of a question, at least in my mind. But yeah, we're looking onto Train, we're looking onto Dust 2 here as the next couple of maps. I mean, Train, I think this one's probably like a 50-50 in a sense. It depends how each team starts. MVP obviously starting off on CT side. That is going to be nice. Let's get the AWP into the hands early of Zeta. Let's get the secondary AWP into the hands early of Solo. Make that one work in our favor, because that is very much the CT side setup that MVP does like to run, and it does tend to work out quite nicely. If GOSU can keep the CT economy low here, though, we know, of course, that Train is quite a solid map for them. So MVP could definitely struggle here if things start off nicely for GOSU, and that could definitely be a problem. Like you said, with Inferno being that 3rd and final map.
Well, HSB, they have a, they have a reputation to uphold on MVP. The first kill will go out, the first frag is on the Zeph. The push was hard here, but MVP have read this quite well. And already in 3 versus 4, they decide against it. Bomb plant is going to go down, so they still don't have control of the site.
Yeah, definitely. GOSU just trying to take some long-range battles against those USPs, and that's obviously not ideal with only the Glocks. They've been able to get the bomb down, but it's a 4v2 now. Sioke not able to step up, and now it's all on a Jinx in the 1v5, the 1v4 even, my mistake. I don't think it's going to matter too much, really, if it was a 4 or a 5. It was always going to be the round for MVP once they got those first couple of kills before the bomb did go down. Great start for MVP, able to build that CT economy up really, really quickly, and that's pretty important against an opponent on their own map choice. You just want to start off nicely, so you give yourself that sort of level of comfort, that base to build off and allow you to start to make things happen earlier on. Because things could probably get pretty difficult here for MVP, you know, in toward the middle, late stages of this half, when GOSU starts to get some good guns in their hands, when they start to warm up a little bit and when they start to throw out some of those strategies that we've come to expect from them here on Train.
Well, it was MVP that picked the CT side, so happy and willing to get themselves off to a flying start in that fact on Train. Against Stormrunner, 16-8, so we know that Train's been played very recently for them with good form. Now Zion just peeking out here towards Ivy. He'll take a massive bit of poke, throws down the smoke, and the push comes to a halt. Bomb towards that Ivy area as well. And might just be a quick rotate looking towards stairs to B.
Yeah, I want to touch on the history of these two teams just a little bit in this round, which should be more of a throwaway than anything else. Obviously, when you look at these two teams coming from the same region and they do play each other quite often, MVP's actually only ever lost one map to GOSU. That was Inferno last time they did play it. We did turn into a third mapper, which we didn't expect at the time. But now you're kind of looking at this map pool, you know, and thinking maybe this one's actually a chance for GOSU. If they knock over Train, definitely can get onto an Inferno and have a good crack there. The real thing that's actually changed between MVP and GOSU of late is that GOSU have decided that they're not going to allow Nuke through. A lot of the time in the past we saw Nuke go through and it was always an MVP map, but now that doesn't exist, and that creates an element of doubt in my mind, at least for MVP today.
Smart thinking as well for MVP, just their previous results on Nuke, too strong to ignore. GOSU come into this head first. That is a great flash, but Zine won't find the first headshot. That means the push comes through. Molly slows it down. Glow on the other side as well. Look at his position. He's coming in for the side. Will get a bit of damage off, eventually finds the frag, but Solo's in on the other side, and the sandwich begins for MVP. Solo runs up towards Green Train. The push comes to a halt, bit of damage off, and time is running out. The flanks here as well. They forgot about Glow.
Yeah.
And MVP close out this round. It's a very good start.
Ooh. Yeah, if they can get HSK after time, that'd be lovely. Glow at least has retrieved the M4. I was going to say that's important. HSK able to take the AK through the round is nice. It was obviously a hero AK buy there from GOSU. It almost works out. If they would have given themselves another 10 or 15 seconds, HSK was a chance in there for that clutch. It kind of all starts there with Zion not being able to spot the players through the smoke. I thought off the back of that flashbang he's going to get at least one back away, but instead he doesn't really spot them out, and by the time he does spot them out, he's sort of standing there in no man's land. Free kill for GOSU, sort of opens up the waterworks, but in the end they can't complete the round in their favor. They've decided to force buy into this one with HSK taking that AK through. Does allow them to do that. Stax doesn't have too much cash here to play with, but neither does the rest of MVP. Because that round was so expensive for the CT side, this is a good force from GOSU, and they can reset MVP here if they win this round.
4 AKs on the side of GOSU, and there's just a Deagle sitting in on Stax. Good molly onto Zef, he'll smoke it out. But he's still sitting in ladder room. The nade just tickles the pickle.
Yeah, Zef needs to make sure that he doesn't do anything particularly exciting here. Just wants to sit steady, wait for them to drop down into SL. There is no reason for him to be pushing up and finding information at this point. GOSU's obviously expended quite a bit of utility, so MVP does know, roughly speaking, where GOSU is at this point. But GOSU playing quite slowly on their T side so far, really trying to set some stuff up. Zion will spot some info out, and that will force the smoke out from him. So good work from GOSU so far. They're really using up a lot of that utility. Zef eventually gets a bit impatient and decides to push on forward. That's an easy kill for Jinx, and now it's a 4v5. MVP looking a little bit worried now.
There's a split as well. Solo still sitting on top of Blue Train.
Solo's going to be key here in this hold.
Oh, they're pushing out, and they eventually know where he is. Bomb plants down. Bomb carry, excuse me. Solo drops and dies.
25 seconds, though.
Glow around the side. He hears the plant, peeking around. Doesn't check straight ahead. Unfortunately, gets taken down, and Zeta left to recover here with the scout. There's an MP9 on the side of Zion. A 2v4. Willing to take it here. Spotted out on top of the train itself, and Zion going to try and push through.
Yeah, Zion should be able to get one for free here, and he will be able to do that. Let's see if he can follow up with more. Not quite. Had he had a rifle in his hands there, it was more of a chance. Zeta has to try and go for this, but not going to be able to do anything. He had only a scout to play with, and I guess the USP, but realistically not much of a chance there. A little unfortunate, I think, for MVP that round goes that way. Having to play that one out 4v5, especially when I think it was Zef that went down, was one of the players with the rifle, in fact. If it was an SMG, it's like less of a big deal, but that was really one of your power players that did drop there. So GOSU played it out nicely, pretty easily able to win that round in the end, and MVP straight away back onto just a pistol armor buy. It's going to be a double eco here for MVP, so they'll have to take a full eco next round if they don't win here. But let's see what the CZs can do. There's always a chance when it comes to the pistol armor buy that you can find a cheeky win here or there. And already some aggressive positions being taken by MVP, trying to take those 1v1 battles against GOSU and trying to put them under pressure early on.
Well, already a bit of damage out, went to Glow and Solo, so this round you're hoping for that first shot from the CZ. Solo, information's there, using it to push now. Hasn't found the cross though, and that's 3 quick kills. Glow up the ladder as well, stairs. And
nice bait, really, from GOSU there. Like HSK just sitting in the corner, easily able to clean them up as they're all trying to face Lakia. In the end, GOSU easily able to win that round. As expected, double eco out here for MVP, so won't see too much out of them in this round. And very, very quickly, GOSU's going to be taking the lead here on Train.
Well, stacks on the SG, so again, that heads-up play, or heads-up towards the international regions. We were talking about it a little bit yesterday, Jordan, about how, you know, who was willing to take the AUG, who was willing to take the SG, and personal preference.
I think the SG is obviously a little bit less exciting for me than the AUG would be. SG, you know, in that case, I think you'd probably be just better off with an AK most of the time. It depends on what kind of player you are, but I think the AK just a little bit cheaper, a bit more going for it in that case than, like, for example, what the M4 versus the AUG is that, you know, the AUG can get that one-shot headshot where the M4 can't. So I put a little bit more stock in the AUG than in the SG. But if COK or Stacks rather can make it work here, definitely no harm done really at the end of the day with that SG. Especially in a round like this, it really doesn't matter what you have. You could literally be running around with pistol armor and you'd still have an advantage over MVP at this point. Looks like GOSU pretty solid on their anti-ecos. And that's really good to see, because if you're against a team like MVP, you need to be ensuring every single possible round is going to go your way. Don't let them pick up a pistol round win or something like that, because if you're winning and you allow MVP back in, then MVP is going to really take that rope and run with it. But at the moment, GOSU not really allowing that. There'll be another buyout here from MVP, but we talked a lot about the double AWP setup early on for MVP. They haven't had the money to do that yet. They're not going to have the money to do that for a little bit unless they win a few rounds in a row. So it's still an uphill battle here for MVP, I think. GOSU definitely putting some pressure on here early.
Looking towards Zeta, especially to start that AWP setup. But 2-3 GOSU. Now looking to continue their run through. It's MVP with the full buy, as you said. Famas on Glow. Really
nice stuff from GOSU, just throwing a bunch of flashbangs over there into the A bomb site. Makes MVP think that they're going to be playing quickly into A. Forces a lot of the MVP smokes out early. Now you can see MVP's got absolutely no counter utility left. And all GOSU's uses a couple of flashes, but Zeph steps up large. 2 for none, 2 for 1 in the end. Zeta will chime in with a trade as well. Looking great here for MVP. It's fallen apart a little bit for GOSU.
Well, maybe it's 2v2. There's not enough health on the other players of GOSU. As soon as they peek out, they will die. Zeta gives the information over. Glowkey finishes it there, and MVP pick back up their round.
I mean, that's a little unfortunate for GOSU, really. I don't think that they needed to play that quickly because they had wasted so many of the MVP utilities. They should have known that MVP was on a bit of a lower buy there as well, and so they could have tried to work the map a little bit more, take advantages where they could, really unsettle MVP a little bit, but GOSU decides to go quickly. It's not going to work against a caliber of team and a caliber of individuals like what MVP have got. Zeph able to get the 2K, then Glow able to get the 2K as well. Neither of them really under too much pressure in the end there, and GOSU fall by the wayside. With that said though, 3 players do go down for MVP, so it forces a pretty large reinvestment out from the CT side. So even still, their money's not looking particularly amazing here, and run boost failed a little bit there by COK.
Gets it this time, HSK with the peek, it was dead on as well.
Interesting that HSK is going to be the one taking the AWP straight away, apart from COK. In the past, we've expected COK to be the one to take the AWP, which always kind of was a question in my mind because we know the caliber of AWPer that HSK can be. Either it's just a thing today, or maybe it's something that GOSU is actually trying to implement in that HSK will move to the primary AWP role. Either way, we'll see how it works out. I definitely expect that HSK can have a pretty good time with that AWP, but then I have to question how COK will go with the rifle, because HSK was always fairly solid, at least in this GOSU roster when it came to the rifle duties.
Well, the moment he's moved over with the rest of the team, heading towards A. But Jinx expecting a little bit more after what we saw in round number 2, or round 3. And slow and steady GOSU. Only 35 seconds though, so the move's got to come out soon, and you can see preparing for the smokes over in the A bomb site.
Not going to be fun. Minizetta's boosted up. He'll be able to see over the smokes. 3 players, or even maybe 4 players holding this A bomb site, so GOSU have a lot to deal with.
Well, they'll flash him out, but Zeta's still in the same position. They haven't found him, and he just gets a free reign. Volley down 2. Zeph has the angle, drops down, but Zine still here with the AK. He's going to get a couple of quick taps. There's the love tap #1. Love tap #2 doesn't exist with Stacks actually coming for the flank. He can change this round, but time, not even a factor there. 6 seconds, yes, but Glow secures the round.
It came down to that 1v1 aim battle between Stacks and Glow able to just swing around and win it. Also denying the bomb plant, pretty important indeed. A nice attempt from GOSU, getting the kill straight away onto Solo there in SL, did give them the chance. And so far, MVP have had some real problems holding on to SL, so might be a question of whether they want to continue to invest a player in there or if they want to play a little bit further back into the bomb site. But for MVP, another very, very costly round. Sure, they win it, but they are straight back to reset territory time and time again, and the pressure doesn't lift right now for MVP. All it takes is one round here for GOSU. And again, the buy is really bad for MVP here. At least they have an AWP for Zeta, but Solo's going to give away his life there to Sioke, trying to go for a push. I'm not so sold on that. Like, I don't see why he needs to be doing that in a 5v5 scenario like this when they've done some damage to Sioke. Yeah, they've only got the SMGs to hold with, but a push like that, like, you've got to think about the risk versus reward. And I think the risk is much, much higher than the reward would dictate.
You know, there's someone there as well, has been every single round. So for MVP, losing that one member early, and now for COK, it doesn't even matter. What is the play? Well, still slow out, but last round was left to the last minute, one last play, and almost pulled it off. The aggression from GOSU once they enter site is immense. But for MVP, it's a bomb site. It's kind of been a risk and reward for them as well.
Well, what can HSK do here with the AWP? MVP have read it pretty well that GOSU are putting a bit of presence toward the B bomb site, though it does seem as though GOSU may actually end up really committing into A. They have only got the one player here faking it out. Zeta's going to be smoked off, and it's all onto Zine now as GOSU's going to make their way into A.
Well, Zine left alone. Rotation is coming through from Zeta, but is it going to be in time? You don't think so. He finds the burst on top of Train, can't get the shot off. A 1-for-1 favors the side of GOSU here, but Zeta making it on site, won't get the AWP shot. Second time the third there comes through. Zeta's still alive as well.
It's Zeta, I mean, obviously, but he stepped up absolutely massive there, Jake, able to survive for such a long time. Obviously lucky that the guy coming around through the side only had a deagle. I don't know who it actually ended up being there in the end, but had that been a rifle player, Zeta probably drops, but the deagle shot's not connecting MVP. That was a pretty streaky round, to be honest, Jake. I think GOSU actually played it out better than what MVP did. It's just that they missed their shots, and MVP able to come away with it. They also get a secondary AWP out in this round, so this is where the fireworks are going to start to begin. That's the important round that MVP was able to win that they probably shouldn't have. GOSU now have given them a little bit of rope to play with. Give them an inch, see how much of a mile MVP is going to take in these next few rounds.
GOSU still able to push them, but that round, like you said, influential there for MVP, 5-3. And now we look and see what they can do on this eco, if they can take a couple of guns out. We talked a lot about the economy before and how it was disrupted by these very close 1-2 members left standing rounds. So
I don't see how this is going to work out for GOSU. The smokes are obviously up, but a lot of CT players right now. Zeph able to clean up all three there. Bomb actually in the end was planted. HSK and Sioke, however, absolutely under immense amounts of pressure, and they're not going to be able to win this round on their own. HSK barely even trying at this point, seeing if he can maybe just sneak away with a gun as someone will try and chase him. But round will go the way of MVP, and that's exactly the kind of round that they won. The last round, super impactful in getting MVP on the right track, and this has kept them on the right track where they can now build up that CT economy. Things looking a little bit more powerful now for MVP when it comes to the buy. Do they want to upgrade the MP9s in this round? Looks like the answer might be no. They're going to rely on the double AWP and see what kind of an impact that can have. They will be able to buy in the next round anyway if they do lose here. But I don't know. I feel like for MVP at this point, it might not have been a bad idea just to upgrade, just to make sure you have that proper buy. Keep that pressure onto GOSU. If the round goes back the way of GOSU, then they're kind of back in with a chance.
Well, Zine was aggressively pushing up with that MP9 towards Ivy. He'll pull back after smoke and incendiary, but right now Solo just gets the leg. And MVP happy to push up on their positions here just to get information, play aggressively. Again, risk versus reward, and at the moment, the reward's coming through.
Yeah, definitely. With the MP9s, you kind of want to try and make something happen, and MVP do really like to play with the SMGs, not just on Train, but you'd also see it on a map like Inferno.
Yeah.
Double stack into SL, and that very rarely actually works out. I've said time and time again, it's just, I don't know why teams keep trying to do it, because most of the time it tends to be a 2 for none. And Zeph has shown us exactly why. If that first shot doesn't hit from the tees, then the CT's just able to line things up pretty easily. And in the end, it'll go the way of MVP. That's exactly how you want this round to play out. You want the rifle to be taking the initial contact here. And the SMGs don't even have to really do too much work. Now it's a 3v5. Very favorable for MVP. Timer ticking down. And GOSU sort of a little bit lost right now on the T side of Train.
Well, they'll just have to make one move, hope it sticks. It's going to be A again, with Bomb lurking in on the wing. Zeph's just going to clean him up here as well. Bit of utility still left on HSK, but Lucky doesn't find anything. HSK trades off with the AWP, but 2 versus 4, still not favorable, and Solo's going to get the peak if he comes back out, but decides against it towards Ivy. Zion's pushed up, and the cleanup crew now commences for MVP. Another round that's going to go their way. Even with Bomb down, you're asking for a lot here from Stax.
Yeah, well, nice for him to at least get the Bomb down here, and the more damage that he can do is still going to keep that thought in the back of the mind of MVP that their economy is low, but no more kills come across. Good shot from Mini Zeta. Well, MVP is going to go up 7-3. Another pretty nice round for them, economically speaking. Unfortunate for GOSU that it goes that way, but this is what I talked about at the start of the map. I said if GOSU was going to be able to put pressure on MVP, it was going to have to be early.
Yep.
As soon as that CT economy builds up, as soon as the double AWP starts to come out from MVP, I think GOSU will start to fall by the wayside, and we are seeing a little bit of that come into effect. Not necessarily because the double AWPs, because they're not really having much of an impact. Solo got one shot in there, and Zeta in the end gets the kill on the final player. It was obviously Zeph in that last round that had the big impact, but for MVP, now they're starting to feel a little bit more comfortable. They're starting to look a lot more comfortable. The individuals are stepping up, and the going is getting a lot more difficult for GOSU. And against a team that's such a powerhouse and such a favorite as an underdog, you need to be putting them under pressure from the get-go. Otherwise, they're going to be able to just run away with things, and that's exactly what we're seeing right now.
It's definitely why MVP are one of the top teams, especially in the Asian region. For MVP, they're coming into their stride right now. Now, it was a bit of an attack pause coming through from GOSU, so looking to kind of swing that momentum back their way. They've gone for a full buy once again. Stacks back on the SG, and an all picked up by HSK looking to trade off. But the double AWP setup still here from Zeta and Solo for MVP, looking comfortable. And as you said before, it's not so much about those shots, but more about exerting that pressure, struggling to get on the A-bomb side as GOSU so love to do.
And MVP at this point, they now have that sort of second chance if they lose the round to be able to buy back into it again. So the momentum has definitely shifted in the favor of MVP. Zeph again is going to be trying to take some SL control. Looks like Solo's lost an AWP battle against HSK, and Zeph tagged down heavily here as well. They're aware of it. Sioke will get the grenade down. This round just falling apart a little bit for MVP as HSK now is out onto the site.
GOSU able to push through 3 versus 5. HSK, all the utilities there. Open back a sight from Zeta. He gets flashed out and loses control of that bomb train.
Glow's doing the right thing here, trying to push up and get some positioning. Maybe he can make a difference for this round.
Glow comes down. They expect him, though. Still finds a shot off the back of ladder. Now up in snipers. This might actually be salvageable for MVP.
Very, very low HP on these players. Zion is going to need to have an impact. Zeta trying to cause a distraction, and Zion, the star player here for MVP, stepping up and finding 2, not losing a single point of HP, and all of a sudden it swings back in the favor of MVP as again, Glow is finding so much information right now.
He's already found 2 on the side of Zion. Glow comes forward. He may be low, but the shots are still there. Looking for the peak, but eventually still wasting a bit of time here on the side of GOSU. The 2v2 now looking for the plant on the other side. B is the go, and MVP lose their second last member. Stax makes it a 1v1 and turns it quickly.
Yeah, really important aim battle there for Glow. If he would have won that, it probably wins the round, but in the end, turns it into a 2v2. The bomb plan is going down on B, and then MVP's caught on the rotation. So a little unfortunate for MVP. They did good work, or Zion really did good work to bring it back into a 3v2, but in the end, doesn't matter. At that point, 7-4 is going to come up. Like I said, though, MVP will be able to pick up another buy round here. This time, though, very, very low on the economy. So an important round out now for both of those teams. Glow gets tagged up heavily as well, and that's not going to be fun at all as the solo B player.
Glow taking a bit of damage at the start of round once again, and aggression still coming through for MVP. Full M4s across the board. Jinx just got a molly out. And obsessed with this ladder room.
Yeah, a lot of damage done over on the B bomb site does force Zeta to go over there to try and back up Glow, which is going to weaken the hold here on A for MVP. predominantly, we have seen a 4-1 split from MVP on this CT side, but now they're going to be forced into the 3-2. And there's another chance for GOSU to reset MVP and really come back into this match.
Zeph trying to regain control of that said ladder room as well for MVP, still in their stride. But GOSU, it's looking a lot more competitive when we compare kind of the matches yesterday from Southeast Asia to East Asia, at least with GOSU. We've gotten to the point, and it is a different feeling of the tournament because we are towards the later stages. We're looking at a qualification match, and MVP, they want to seal the deal here, move towards the minor. And it's expected of it at this point. The push is slowly going to come through from GOSU now. Still a little bit of utility, but not as much as you'd like there.
Yeah, Solo's in a nice spot, but the rotation from B is going to be a very, very long one for those two players. So they need to start off with some good defensive kills early, MVP, and that has not occurred. Zeph goes down to start things off.
Well, you're hoping Solo would get a little bit more there. 4 versus 5. Remember, Glow is low, but
15 seconds.
Once again sitting on the back of Train, playing with time here. They don't know Solo's here. Drops the bomb carrier, and now everything cast awry here as GOSU push forward. Solo cleans up that round, and boy, oh boy, MVP know when to hit their shots.
Yeah, well, GOSU, I think it was more a case of them not knowing when to push decisively into the site. As soon as they get that kill onto Zeph, they need to be charging in there. They don't have time to be messing around and playing slowly like that. It's going to give too much room to players like Zion and players like Solo. We're just going to get themselves in a sneaky position and hold out long enough. Eventually, the time became too much of an issue, and as soon as you saw like 1 or 2 of those kills go the way of Solo and Zion, it was starting to be a big problem for GOSU. And straight away, we're back to square one again for GOSU. That was their chance to reset MVP, and that was their chance to come back into this map. But now MVP is going to be given another lifeline in that they'll be able to get a 9th round here, most likely for free, as it is just pistols out for GOSU, and then inevitably MVP is going to build that CT economy up again as we head into the final couple of rounds. So for now, MVP looking really, really solid. For probably 10 rounds, I would say, on the CT side.
Yep.
11 would be maybe a little bit too much of a fairy tale just yet for MVP, but still a very real possibility.
Well, not much taken away from the side of MVP, looking down the barrel of a perfect round towards the Seco, but at this point, MVP setting those expectations up once again, only to be barreled over if GOSU can have a miraculous CT side here on Train. And here's hoping. Yeah, 9-4.
So, if MVP wins this next round, or if GOSU even buy into this next round, is the real question. To begin with, I was going to say if MVP wins this round, then GOSU can't really buy in the final round of the half, but it might be a case of GOSU has to just go for pistol armor here and allow that 10th over to MVP and then really fight for the 10-5 or the 11-4 instead of trying to fight for a 9-6, which is going to be the case. Unfortunate for GOSU that one round that they do lose ends up resulting in a double eco really for them. And it's a really, really solid chance now for MVP to get to 10. 10's sort of the minimum score for them at this point.
Aggressive from Solo there.
But 11, I think as MVP right now, you're looking for 11 because that's how this half has kind of felt. It's felt like a pretty solid first half for MVP, very dictated by MVP. So 11-4 is where you want. And that really kind of just puts a nail in the coffin for GOSU.
I thought we were going to see a lot more from GOSU there, especially towards round 3 and 4. Things were looking close, and it looks like their decision-making was kind of on top, but the past couple of rounds, it's just that questionable decision. Right now, not even playing with time, just trying to take something off MVP, but another perfect round here.
Super solid.
And 10-4 now, first half coming to a close, and MVP to finish on 11. Jordan, I'll touch on that. 11 would be the dream here on Train.
Absolutely. I don't think it's been a case of GOSU making incorrect decisions or anything like that. Like their reads have been pretty good. They've been hitting the right sites. They've been forcing the rotations of MVP a little bit, but they haven't been able to execute when they've needed to. They've just been a little bit too slow. The individuals of MVP have stepped up a couple of times that have really turned rounds in their favor, and that's sort of what you expect from a match like this, where MVP do have those really powerful individual players that can have massive, massive impacts. And GOSU, you kind of look at their roster and you don't really get the same sense from the majority of their players that something like that is going to happen. So GOSU are going to default back to an A, execute for their final round of the half, try and make this one work, but against this kind of a setup, triple AWP, well, double AWP and an auto sniper are not so sold.
Well, everything in the kitchen sink sent over the wall. Now for the peak, Solo needs to hit that shot. He'll find the second anyway. The clearance is there from the side of MVP. 2 members already down. Make that 4. And the 5th, a perfect round. It wasn't even an eco this time. And MVP, 11-4, the dream is true.
Yeah, absolutely decimated toward the end of that half, GOSU. MVP, once they hit their stride, and that was always going to be the issue. I was talking about that before the match, is that MVP, they might take a little bit to warm up into this. So it was really important that GOSU was going to be able to, or if they were going to be able to get rounds in that first half, it was going to come early on in the piece. And they weren't really able to do that. They did lose the pistol. They got the first gun round, but they weren't able to really double down on that. They got a couple of early rounds, but it was not really ever enough to fully reset MVP, and that was the problem. Every single time there was a reset opportunity for GOSU, they would lose that round. MVP would get that second chance in, and they inevitably took those chances and ran with them. And we see ourselves with an 11-4 first half, and 11 on the CT side is really, really good. You'd be looking at, I'd say, like 10 or even 9 as sort of a pass score here on Train. It is still fairly CT-sided, so we'll have to see what GOSU can do. Remember, it is their map choice. This is a map that they would be expecting to win, otherwise they wouldn't have chosen it. So it's going to have to come from a strong CT half, because the T half definitely was not that.
And the past experience for the side of MVP on Train, 16-8 is what we're looking down the barrel of. Not this matchup, but the previous matchup between Storm Rider and Train looked dominant.
Yeah, they didn't play Train. Actually, I don't think that MVP and GOSU have ever played Train against each other. So this is a first time for everything.
Yep.
We do have a little bit more to go off when it comes to Inferno, but Dust 2 is also a little bit up in the air. So, I mean, this is why I sort of had my questions, in a sense, about MVP as to how they'd go in this series. You know, we know, we have a bit of an idea as to how Mirage and Nuke and that kind of thing is going to go between these two teams, and even Inferno to an extent. But Train and Dust 2 we've never seen between the two. We've seen both teams play them, but not against each other. And, you know, we know that MVP is quite solid on this map, and I guess they're going to show exactly why. What do they have on the T side, though? That is the real question. You know, you can look really good on the CT side, but T side is definitely a different ball game. MVP are going to be the ones with the onus on them. Pistol round would be, of course, lovely. It just really makes the job so much easier here for MVP. They can stream their way out onto the A-bomb site. Nothing fancy here from MVP. Already a good start. Bomb plant not going to be denied there by Jinx, but Stacks and Lakia finding a kill apiece.
Yeah, 2 for 1, already making things easier, but the bomb is down, and Stacks looking to push. Will find himself a bit of damage in ladder room, but Solo just gets hit in the head by Sioke.
I wonder if they're going to expect the double stack actually into SL here from Mini Zeta and Zeph. Be a defuse on that bomb. Somebody needs to start shooting, and it is going to need to be Zeph, but he can't connect in the end. Sioke got down to a one-shot, but that 5-second defuse good enough for GOSU to win the CT pistol. Important for them to actually win that as well, to get their way back into this map. And MVP need to go back to the drawing board, because it is going to be just the pistols in this round. Actually a force buyout from MVP. So that is something that we don't see too often, especially when the bomb goes down. But they're going to be able to get themselves a couple of AKs. Those will go into the hands of Glow and Zyne. Zeph with the Galil. And for MVP, the key in this round is to strike early, or not necessarily early, but strike before the information is given to GOSU. So as soon as that info is given that MVP have got guns, you want, as MVP, to have already found that first kill.
Well, they've gone unnoticed so far, heading towards B. And one lurking in the back of side as well. And you can see it's probably Zeta or Solo. And by the looks of it, MVP still making up their mind. But B seems to be the go towards that catwalk up onto site. Now there's 2 members on B. It's going to be HSK and Lucky are going to spot that one out. But a little bit of utility there for MVP as well. So there's not too much on the side of GOSU, so they're not going to see this one coming.
Yeah, it'll come down to some good entries here. Now some information being given. They see the utility. GOSU's going to know that there's something up here from MVP, but where does the explosion come from? That is the real question.
Zyne's already been tagged down. HSK with the scout doesn't find too much. Luckier, though, is cleaning house on the entries and will get traded off, but is it a little bit too late? A 2 versus 3. GOSU don't have priority on this site, but they might have priority on the map. Whoa. Instant peek there, takes the okay.
Glow's in such a good spot, but the bomb needs to go down pretty shortly here from MVP, so he'll have to try and cover off Zeph. It's all on Glow here to win this round. He's the one with the AK, covering off the brown halls, but as a scout and an M4 for a retake, there's no utility, there's no kit here for GOSU. This is actually going to be quite difficult.
HSK going to be the first to peek. Still, Zeph not in the greatest position, but biding his time. They're going to have to check this. They're coming up behind him. He has no idea. Scout in the back of the head, but here comes Glow. It's up to him, as Jordan said. Waiting for the peek.
They don't have the kit.
3 seconds. Peeks there. He finds it. And now he can play for time. They know he can't defuse it. he just sprays out. Glow may go down, but the round very handily won by MVP.
Yeah, great stuff in the end there from Glow. Very, very textbook in the 1v2. There must have been the information given by his teammates that there was no kit available for GOSU, or he just made a ballsy play and assumed that they didn't have a kit because he did wait quite a long time, and that put a second doubt in the mind of GOSU as to where he was coming from. In the end, really, really nicely done. MVP, of course, lose all of their guns, but that's much more impactful for GOSU losing around like that than it is for MVP to win with only well, no guns remaining. HSK, he takes the scout out in this round. Now, interesting buy from him, to be honest, here, because GOSU probably could have afforded to go for the double eco. The scout now being purchased by HSK kind of means that GOSU have to fully invest into this round, I think. We'll see what they do decide to do. It was a tactical pause out from them, but yeah, here comes the investment. And this is, I don't know. I don't know that this is going to work for GOSU, to be honest.
Well, double scout here, Jordan. Stax picks up one up at the last minute. Bit of utility as well. And GOSU, they've got a plan in mind. But where are they going to put it? At the moment, Stax is sitting around Ivy. Heads back towards site. COK here with the CZ, but they're not going to see this one coming. Looking for the jump boost again.
They're just going to three-man peek it. And MVP not taking too much damage there. Bit of information given, though, to GOSU. So they could start to try and explore the map on the other side here over toward B. They've decided not to really push too much, which in the end is probably the correct decision because MVP did have players covering off. But MVP setting themselves up for a nice A split.
Just kind of good position as well.
Both the scouts on the A site, though, from GOSU, so MVP do need to be a little careful here. Get a tag with a scout, it can be finished off easily by the pistol.
Flashes out again, HSK. Entry shot's not there. MVP already 5-1, COK's down. Stacks as well, HSK forced off the back of the site, does put a bit of damage in, but Zine still cleaning house. Jinx comes through to follow it up. But he peeks out, and down to luck here. He's not going to get too much done. A small trade there and disruption to MVP, but that won't count for too much there. 3 guns still left over, and a round picked up yet again.
Yeah, Zion absolutely pumping them with the Galil there. A couple of nice headshots out from him. I mean, looking across the board for MVP, it hasn't been an individual star performance from any of the players, really. You're just seeing across the board just very, very consistent numbers, 14, 15 there. Zed is down on 11, but not really too big of a deal. Just across the board, they're having all of them an equal impact, which is pretty nice to see for MVP. Still feel like there's more left in the tank here for Zion and for Zeta in particular.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, I'm not so sure how this is going to work for GOSU. I want to see a couple of grenades headed in their direction. Unfortunately, there's only one for MVP, but imagine Zeph throws a grenade in there. That's a free amount of damage. Solo spotted it out early, gets a couple of kills, will inevitably drop, but that's the crisis really averted for MVP as they've discovered the stack and no problems at all for them now. In theory.
In theory. Worst things have happened. They move away from bowling, they move towards, I don't know, golf. And actually a couple taken out, so Jinx might not have head armor, but at least he's done something. Yeah, definitely. I don't know how big of a deal it really is going to be here for MVP. Zeph will finish it off. AK won't go through. You know, they take a couple of AKs through. Money's still looking pretty good here for MVP. Now, because GOSU did invest in that scout and pistol buy, it does mean in this round in particular, they're still not going to have everything that they could want. HSK is going to have to take away a FAMAS to get extra utility. Stax is lacking utility. Everyone's lacking really utility or a defuse kit or something. It's not a perfect buy here for GOSU. And when you're down 14-5, like this is kind of the round where you want to have your perfect buy. Cool. Given the fact that GOSU weren't really able to put too much pressure on MVP with the scout and the pistol buy, in hindsight, you would say, look, it might have been better off to save. But I think GOSU, they were really trying to get their way back into this game earlier on. Doesn't look like that's going to happen now, though, as MVP has just been given too much leeway. 14-5 is very quickly going to turn into 15-5 by the looks of things. Yeah, is it going to happen in this round? Definitely not at this stage. Bit of early damage down on HSK and COK, and that just kind of made us feel, well, the opposite of okay. Jinx down as well. Flashes onto site, and MVP ready to breach right in. Zeph has dropped down ladder room, and HSK has a decent enough position, but only on ladder room. And as soon as they come back in, Still heaps of utility here for MVP.
Yeah, well, GOSU have set themselves up relatively nicely for this one. Lakia will have a pretty quick rotate over to A, so there is that to take a little bit of the hurt off of GOSU, but MVP, they're really just slowing things down, keeping GOSU thinking. GOSU's got no idea what's going on right now, and look at where Solo's managed to swindle himself.
We've seen one. COK coming up as well.
And GOSU second-guess themselves now as well, and this is the power of MVP playing so slowly. Stax doesn't spot anything, so he thinks that it's going to be a B take here for GOSU to deal with, and he's already called that one out, but needs to speed things up here. If he actually gets into T-Con there behind MVP, this could really be problematic for them, and he might be able to save the round for GOSU.
Has been smoked out, mollies through, a little bit late.
No.
Stax doesn't land his shots, and MVP get away with a warning this time.
Yeah, unfortunately for GOSU, that's pretty much going to signal the end of the round. That was their chance back into it, but Stax just whiffing quite extremely. But at least it gives the opportunity here for GOSU to try and save their guns through to the next round, give them at least a chance. Solo is going to try and nip that one in the bud as he pushes on in towards CT spawn, but Lakia will shut him down. Still, MVP can really just throw their body at GOSU at this point and try and deal with all of these remaining guns. Well,
MVP, it was their story, and they're going to continue it on. We move to Dust 2 next as well, and that's going to be a very interesting conversation. For MVP right now,
I'm afraid. Yeah, I'm afraid. I think that's the end of that for GOSU because they're not able to save any guns through. Their buy is going to be absolutely shocking here in the final round. 16-5 most likely on the cards here for MVP, and that's a massive, massive performance on MVP's side.
Huge win, yeah.
You know, this was supposed to be a pretty decent map for GOSU. It has been a decent map in the past for MVP, but it's not one of their best maps, so to speak. So I'm actually really impressed with that, and I think GOSU is one of those teams, MVP is one of those teams that they'll only play as well as they need to on the day. They, you know, I've seen a lot of online leagues or a lot of online qualifiers where they've had a double elim sort of fallback where they have actually played pretty poorly and they didn't seem to care too much. But in a qualifier like this is to go to the Asia Minor. This is definitely what MVP really wants. At the end of the day, this is like, if you're going to win one tournament in the year, it is this one.
Yeah.
And so this is pretty much the best MVP that we're going to get this year. So far, they've really performed very, very well, and they've put GOSU under the pressure.
Look, it's like final round, nailing in the coffin. What do you call it? Yeah, putting the nails in the coffin. That's the one. But for MVP, ready to bury it. It's Jinx who's already down. It's MVP taking charge, and I think there's going to be a big drop down. Have we gotten over dropping down ladder room? I think maybe. Slow B push instead. Only one member on B, and there is, I just realized there's an auto shotgun on the side of Lakia, so.
Yeah, they just didn't have money to really buy in, so have to go with the subpar weaponry. Obviously, it can work in situations like this, but fairly unlikely to cause too many problems for for MVP at this point. They're playing very, very slowly, just trying to keep GOSU thinking. Cool. Can't get the one shot, and if you don't get the one shot there, even with the auto shotty, it's not going to be a fun time for you at all. So MVP methodically working their way around the map, forcing GOSU in and out of positions, and now it's a 2v5 with the bomb down.
GOSU's last chance, but maybe. Somehow 2 scouts make me think maybe.
Well, they've got a chance to one-shot all of these MVP players with those scouts, so MVP just don't want to give this round away. Looks like they're quite content to play very safely in their position. Zeta really the only one peeking at this point. They're going to wait and see if they can hear anything.
Oh, Glow looks for the shot, doesn't actually find it. They have run out of time. And with that final kill, that'll be MVP. 16-5 over GOSU in map 1. And Train did not look like it was GOSU's pick.
No, but it was. And that's unfortunate because we move on to Dust 2 now, which really does raise some questions here about GOSU in this match. We said if it goes the way of GOSU on Train, Inferno definitely could be an interesting one. Really 50-50 there, depending on how MVP do show up to that third map. But now, in my mind, the Train has gone, especially so convincingly, the way of MVP. This is almost a shoe-in for a 2-0. Dust 2's looked pretty decent for them lately, and I do think that it's going to be a big, big question mark for GOSU. Individuals not really stepping up there for GOSU. You just saw it on the side of MVP, but not for GOSU at all. It seemed like GOSU was reading the play relatively well, actually, on the T side of Train. They were hitting some good bomb sites, but the execution wasn't there. They weren't trading effectively. They weren't really flashing together. The team play wasn't quite there. And all of that was available to MVP when they moved over. So I think MVP's looking fantastic today, and GOSU's looking a little bit lackluster.
Questionable decision.
That's not going to work in your favor when you're the underdog coming into
Especially
that match.
not when you go into Dust 2 next, which is MVP's pick. And realistically, GOSU, their performance on Dust 2 hasn't been as admirable as maybe MVP in the past couple of months. So we're going to find out how that goes. We're going to take a short break, and when we return, map number 2 coming up between MVP and GOSU for qualification.